Hello, and welcome to the Daily Space for today, Wednesday, October 21st, 2020. I am your host, Annie Wilson. Most Mondays through Fridays, our team will be here putting science into your brain. Usually Wednesdays are for Rocket Roundup, and today I'm contractually obligated to remind you all that our Hangoutathon is this weekend on Twitch at twitch.tv/CosmoQuestX. Our goal is to raise $36,000 in 36 hours to help pay for salaries and servers. Everything kicks off at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific on Saturday the 24th. And now that we've covered that, let's get to it, shall we? So first up is a suborbital launch on Tuesday, October 13th, 2020 at 13:38 UTC. Blue Origin launched a New Shepard rocket from Corn Ranch Spaceport in Texas. Although the mission named New Shepard 13 did not orbit the Earth, it did make it to space by crossing the Kármán line at 100 kilometers altitude. According to Blue Origin, there were 12 payloads on board, including the deorbit descent and landing sensor demonstration under the NASA Tipping Point Partnership. This payload was mounted to the exterior of the craft, a first for the company. This flight was an opportunity to test that technology used with the goal of achieving high accuracy landing. Other payloads included postcards from school children and tomato seeds for a hands-on program for Canadian students called Tomatosphere. Classroom teachers register for the program and receive 2 packages of seeds, one labeled A and the other labeled B. The students care for, observe, and record things like the date of germination when you can actually see the plant sprouting, plant height, and so forth, and report back to Tomatosphere. Once their results are submitted, the teachers and students learn if either of their seed packets were previously sent to space. And yes, we have launch video.
Minutes 20 seconds. Minutes 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. Command engine start. 2, 1.
There it goes. It's such a cute little rocket.
All right, look at her go. Mission control has confirmed New Shepard has cleared the tower. Check out that shot from our drone.
All right, and there's more video, right? So here's the rocket landing.
Shepard, let's go. Wow. Look at that stability.
That's just the booster.
Touch
Oh my God.
down. New Shepard, here we go.
Okay, and now the capsule, because the capsule separated and landed separately. So here's that with its parachutes.
Yeah.
And the whole thing was relatively a short flight, like less than 10 minutes. Well, less than 15 minutes total from liftoff to touchdown on the capsule.
All right, and touchdown of the capsule.
That's it. There you go. Short, but sweet and pretty awesome looking. All right, next up on Wednesday, October 14th at 5:45 UTC, 3 more humans and 1 more toilet were sent to space aboard a Soyuz 2.1 Alpha from Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. The MS-17 mission reached the International Space Station after just 3 hours and 3 minutes of flight, a new record for the Soyuz craft. This portion of the Expedition 64 crew consists of Russian cosmonauts Sergei Ryzhikov and Sergei Kudservichkov. I apologize for slaughtering those names. And a single American astronaut, Kathleen Rubins. They are expected to spend about 6 months in space. Also on board the spacecraft were 173 kilograms of cargo, including equipment, rations, and 10 kilograms of fresh produce. Roscosmos published a description of the launch patch, which is different from the mission patch. The launch patch is round shaped, symbolizing the Earth and its perfection, and inscribed into the Cyrillic letter F, standing for the crew call sign favor. In the lower portion of the patch, the inscription Baikonur is located, symbolizing the connection of the MS-17 with the city and the Cosmodrome. The upper portion of the patch contains the image of the International Space Station with its solar panels resembling the Roman numerals 20, XX, standing for the 20th anniversary of its crewed flight operation. In the center, over the Soyuz 2.1 Alpha carrier rocket, is a source of light illuminating the patch and the international crew members with their names written on the edges of the patch. I thought that was really cool, and I really wanted to share that with you. So, launch video.
There's the first umbilical tower separating from the booster.
I thought it would be neat to show the umbilical towers pulling back. I can't remember what exactly they're there for.
Launch.
Second umbilical now separating.
Ignition.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Intermediate. Main. Lift.
And liftoff. Kate Rubin, Sergei Ryzhikov, and Sergei Kuzberchkov now on their way to the International Space Station, the latest in a chain that spans almost 20 years of continuous human presence in space.
10 seconds. The parameters of the rocket are nominal. 20 seconds. The thrusters of the first and second stage are operating nominally.
Okay, next up, on Sunday, October 18th at 12:25 UTC, SpaceX launched another batch of Starlink satellites from LC-39 Alpha at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. This was a dedicated mission, so another 60 satellites were added to the mega constellation, bringing the total number of the version 1.0 satellites launched to 773 of a planned 1,440 satellites. We are officially over half. With half of the satellites deployed in the first shell, Starlink still isn't available to the public. However, receivers have been installed on the Ho Tribe Reservation, which is located in a remote area of Washington state with little to no internet access. According to an article by Zach Jablonski for Peninsula Daily News, it was impossible for residents to use video chat for remote learning or telehealth. And most tribal homes had never updated the software on their tablets or game systems. Yeah, this is what Starlink is designed for, to get internet to where you can't otherwise get internet. Anyway, for those of you keeping score at home, this was the 6th flight for booster Bravo 1051, making it the second Falcon 9 to achieve this. Both fairings were successfully caught by Ms. Tree and Ms. Chief. Each fairing half previously supported 2 missions each. The flight marked the 18th launch of 2020 for SpaceX and the 95th Falcon 9 flight to date. If SpaceX keeps launching at this rate, it will surpass 2018 when it had 21 launches as the busiest year for the company to date. Reminder, rocket launches are loud. You can see some I don't want to call it off-gassing. You can see some venting. That's just oxygen and hydrogen venting.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition and liftoff.
Vehicles pitching downrange.
There it goes.
Stage 1 chamber pressures are nominal.
All right, and it would not be a SpaceX launch without a SpaceX landing.
Drone ship.
Deploy.
And right down the middle, Falcon 9 has landed. This particular booster has landed for the 6th time. This marks our 62nd successful recovery of a Falcon 9 first stage, and the 32nd time we've landed on this particular drone ship. Of course, I still love you.
And finally, another little space news tidbit for you. SpaceX achieved another goal for Starlink this past week. It has been granted a basic international telecommunications service license by the CRTC, which is Canada's version of the FCC. This will allow it to provide international telecommunication services, but does not allow it to operate as an internet service provider within Canada. But it is a very important first step. All right, to wrap things up, here's a running tally of a few spaceflight statistics for the current year. There are currently 5 toilets in space. 2 are installed on the ISS, 1 on each of the Soyuz docked, and there is 1 not yet installed. We've burned up 2 toilets so far this year in the atmosphere. Humanity has put a whopping 976 satellites into orbit. That includes those launched from other in-orbit craft like the ISS. 948 of those came directly from launches, and 713 of those were Starlinks. So far this year, there have been 82 orbital launch attempts, including 9 failures. I keep track of orbital launches by where they launched from, also known as spaceport. Here's that breakdown. China, 30, USA, 27, Kazakhstan, 7, French Guiana, 4, Russia, 4, New Zealand, 4, Japan, 3, Iran, 2, Israel, 1. And your random space fact for the week. Felicette, Earth's first space cat, went to space on the 18th of October in 1963. She has been honored with a statue in the International Space University near Strasbourg, France, that was unveiled last December. Really cool stuff. All right, now I'm going to take questions from our Twitch audience. So, let me see what I can find. All right. Do 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 do. I know this is awkward, but I don't have everything just handy right now. So all right. Yes, Mike Cassidy said that the New Shepard 13 was a stubby rocket. It is indeed a very short rocket. I'm not sure if it's ever going to be launched orbitally. It seems like New Shepard is really focusing on landing technologies and so forth for the moon and Mars, which makes sense. I don't know if anybody is really, other than SpaceX, I don't know if anybody else is really working on that. So it is very, very cute. How big is the New Shepard versus an F9? That's a good question. DPI in chat answers it saying that it is roughly tall as an Electron, just a bigger diameter. So Electron isn't very tall. I really should know these numbers by now, but I don't, and I don't have anyone in my ear feeding them to me. But it's not a really big it is much shorter than the Falcon 9. So Mike Cassidy asks, how much does a seat cost on New Horizons? I don't know, and they haven't put humans on a flight yet. They do intend to eventually put humans on flights, suborbital or otherwise, on New Shepard, and that's actually why they have so many windows that are really large, is so you can have a really nice view. But so far, I don't think there have been any humans that have gone for a ride. There may have been test dummies. Right now, they use all of that space inside for payloads. And some science does get done. It's not just sending postcards and tomato seeds up. There have been rather experiments where they've gotten to experience a little bit of microgravity for brief periods of time, because it just barely made it to the definition of space, right? I think the highest it reached was like 105 kilometers, and the Kármán line is at 100 kilometers. So and the whole flight was less than 15 minutes. So they have put experiments up to get a little bit of microgravity, to experience a little bit of microgravity and record data, but not a lot. Veronica Cure asks, is there a requirement of so many toilets per person? So the only reason why there's 5 up right now is because there's 1 toilet on each of the Soyuz, and it's not a toilet you can sit on. You straddle it like you would a bicycle, motorcycle, horse, etc. And then there's an American toilet installed on the ISS, and then there's a Russian toilet installed on the ISS. That's who owns them. They were both built by Russia. And the 5th toilet is not installed, but it's going to be installed right next to the American toilet. I don't know if there's a requirement of so many toilets per person, because when they're on the station, they just use the toilets on the station. And the biggest crew that's been on the station was when the space shuttle was going up, because I think the space shuttle could hold at least 5 people. So you would have like however many went up in a Soyuz, which is typically only 2 or 3. And then you'd have the space shuttle, but when the space shuttle was docked with the International Space Station, they would also use the toilet on the space shuttle. So there may actually be, a requirement of so many toilets per person, but I don't know the answer to that. The fully crewed size, the whole crew size of the ISS is 6 people. It's going to be going up to 7 because the Crew Dragon can carry 4 passengers instead of 3. So, yeah. So, Hanny asked, did they ever find the ISS leaks and fix it? Yes, they found the leak. It was on the Russian side, or one of the Russian components. It may have been fixed with tape, because duct tape. I don't know for sure how they fixed it, but I think it has been temporarily patched, but they did find it. Ms. Burkitten says they used floating tea leaves to find it, which I'm not sure if that's accurate or not, but that sounds really cool. So Broken Symmetry makes a comment about astronauts have said they should have sent a poet. This time I bet they thought they should have sent a plumber because the toilet failed on the Russian segment last night. Fun fact, there is always a crew member that knows how to repair the toilets, and it's their responsibility to do preventive maintenance and such on the waste hygiene compartment, and I can't remember what the Russian equivalent is called. But yes, there's always an astronaut who essentially doubles as a plumber, and when things really go sideways, they can talk with ground control. So, yeah. Oh no, Ms. Ricketton goes on with the tea leaves to say the loose leaves allowed the crew to follow airflows and find the leak. That's actually really cool. That's actually really cool. Wow. So, Open Cage asks, what was the first stage recovery fraction after touchdown? I'm assuming that's about SpaceX. And I don't know. I don't know. Kerbal goes on to say that at least one Falcon 9 has been lost after successfully landing. It happens sometimes. Rough seas are rough. I mean, it is a barge that it's landing on, and if the seas are rough, the barge can tip and the rocket can be lost in the ocean. So there is that. Hanny asks, when things are launched into space, do they have to have some sort of tracker if so they can't be accidentally hit by other craft? We track these things from the ground, and I would not be surprised if there is a tracker on the crafts themselves. They usually send out some sort of radio signal. Not all objects put into space do that, but they usually send out some sort of radio signal. But those are typically tracked here on the ground with equipment I really don't know about. I'm not really familiar with, but there's a whole catalog of space debris. There's a whole catalog of actual objects that have been put into the sky. Like each satellite that goes up is assigned, I think the abbreviation I believe is called COSPAR. I don't know what it stands for, but it's the year and then literally the number after it of this is what went, this was from this flight. And if it's multiple things from the same flight, they'll add literally a letter after it. So Starlink will all have like 2020, some 2-digit number at this point, and they'll have like letters for each different Starlink right all down the row. And yes, they do go into like double letters, so you can get things like AA, BB, ZZ kind of things. So, yeah, that they are tracked. They are definitely tracked. So Kerbal comes back with an answer about how big the new Shepard is. The new Shepard is the height of an Falcon 9 liquid oxygen tank. So if you know how big that is, that's how tall the new Shepard is. And we have some actual numbers from DPI. 18 meters tall. Americans, that's roughly 18 yards. With 3.66 meters in diameter. The Electron is a tad bit shorter at 17 meters tall and 1.3 meters diameter. Hanny's asked about the ISS. Could they just have a module that is a restroom? No. Space is at a premium on the ISS. There's the only modules that are left to be installed, because believe it or not, the ISS is not fully assembled, are Russian, right? And I believe that there's a treadmill and the resistance training station are in the same module as the waste hygiene compartment. That's the American toilet on the ISS. And the cupola, that thing with all the beautiful windows where we get all these nice, awesome pictures from the ISS, that's also nearby. So, yeah, no, space is at a premium. It's very expensive. So no, they're not just going to have a module. It's more, these toilets are also more than toilets. They also treat liquid waste. So yeah, like today's coffee is tomorrow's coffee kind of deal. Um, it's wild. It's wild. Oh, and Kitten comes back with it wasn't duct tape that they that they used to fix the leak. It was kept in tape and expanding foam. So, there you go. Uh yeah. Yeah. So Kerbal reminds me that the largest crew has been 13 on the ISS, and that was a space shuttle and 2 Soyuz. So 6 and 7, because 3 per Soyuz, and that would mean 7 people on the shuttle. So, and it's happened several occasions, 1995 and 2008. So, yeah. And Kerbal also goes on to say for tracking of objects that they are tracked using radar. So I know that I know that they're tracked. I just don't always know the details of how they're tracked. They're tracked and cataloged. So Ed has a question about space toilets. Some of you are like, "Oh my goodness, enough with the space toilets." If you don't know, I really like space toilets. If you haven't picked that up by now. Anyways, so Ed has a space toilet question. Is there a limit to how frequently the astronauts can recycle their water for reuse, or is there a point when it becomes unusable? So they can't recover all of the water from liquid waste. They can't. They wanted to recover, I think it was like 80%, but I know they're recovering at least half. These are numbers that exist that I just don't remember at the moment. But they aren't recovering, basically, they're not recovering as much as they had hoped to recover. And I'm sure there is a limit of how much can be, you know, recovered each time, right? And eventually that, number, the amount of water that's on the station gets less and less and less and less and less. So water does occasionally have to be shipped up to the ISS. What doesn't get recovered goes into, I believe it's called a brine tank, because at that point it's pretty close to brine and it can be really corrosive and you don't want to mess with it. So yeah, there's that going on. Is there a use for gray water on the ISS, or do they only use pure recycled water? I don't think there's really such a thing as gray water on the ISS. The toilets aren't flushed by water. You don't shower on the International Space Station. I think any kind of bodily cleaning is handled with wet wipes, which isn't the greatest, but it's better than nothing. So I don't know. And the brine is probably too concentrated to use as a fertilizer for the growth experiments. Additionally, the growth experiments, because they're growing radishes right now, those are usually very highly controlled, so they already have like the nutrients, nutrient solution, etc., etc. So, yeah. Because to me, I'm like, I would see, part of me that likes plants would be like, I would love to see if there's a way to process that brine into some sort of fertilizer, but my concern is that it would be too concentrated to use on plants, and it would just burn the plants up, because you can do that with plants. If any of you live in a place where you have plants and dogs in the same part, and like if you ever have grass that turns yellow from a dog going to the bathroom, that's kind of what I'm talking about. Like grass burns will be like yellow or brown depending on how old it is. But that's what I'm talking about. And that brine is much more concentrated than just urine, so that would just fry the plants. But there's part of me that's like, I wonder if it's possible to take any of that and turn it into something useful. So, yeah. Open Cage makes a comment about how they should have sent a construction worker. Yeah, actually, to be a good candidate for an astronaut, because so many people apply, having some sort of engineering or construction skills or mechanical skills is actually an asset, especially for these, future longer term missions where if something breaks, guess what? You're going to have to be the ones fixing it. So I'm not seeing any other questions. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up. Thank you so much for watching. This has been a production of PSI, that's Planetary Science Institute, a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to exploring our solar system and beyond. We are here thanks to the very generous contributions of people just like you. The best way to support us is through Patreon at patreon.com/CosmoQuestX. And all that other good stuff. So until next time, be awesome.